Good afternoon. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good afternoon. Meeting after a long time. Remembering lockdown?
Ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So due to some reasons,
Hi,
I'm
ma'am.
not able to come to college, but we can meet online for 3 lectures in a week. Okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Make sure you have saved your name as a roll number and name. So it will be easy for attendance. Okay. So we'll start. Okay. So we'll start with new topic, dermatology. But before starting the diseases of dermat, we'll see some basics of dermatology. So first of all, what is dermatology? It is the branch of medicine dealing with the skin, nails, hairs, and its diseases. It is especially with both medical and surgical aspect. The branch of medicine that deals with diagnosis and treatment of diseases and disorders of skin. So what you can see in image, the 1 cubic centimeter of skin contains 1 yard of blood vessels, 700 sweat glands, 3000 sensory cells at the end of nerve fibers, 4 yards of nerves, 25 pressure apparatus for the
Hello?
perception of tactile stimuli.
Hello?
Huh?
मॅम सादिक बोलतोय मॅम आमचं कनेक्ट होत नाहीये ऍपला नेटवर्क इश्यू आहे आमचा थोडा तर आमची
Okay.
अटेंडन्स लावायला सांगितले आम्ही लेक्चर याच्यावर अटेंड करतो युवराजच्या फोनवर
कुणाच्या सोबत आहे मग तू? युवराज सोबत.
युवराज सोबत आहे. हो युवराज सोबत.
ओके ठीक आहे चालेल.
हॅलो मॅम मी तुषार कुपनर बोलतोय.
बोल.
कनेक्टच होत नाही आम्ही. हॅलो
जे
हा,
दोन
मॅम,
दोन
तुषार
जण
कुपनर बोलतोय. हॅलो.
कनेक्ट झालेले असतील त्यांनी मला मेसेज करा.
हो मॅम बट आम्ही कनेक्टच नाही झालो होतच नाही. काय प्रॉब्लेम काय म्हणजे
दुसरे कुणाच्या तरी मोबाईल मधून जॉईन व्हा आणि
हो मॅम
तसं
हो
मला
मॅम
मेसेज करा.
हो मॅम
हा माझा मोबाईल न्यू आहे.
मेसेज करा मला, असं डिस्टर्ब नका करू मध्ये. ओके. So in the image, you can see the 1 cubic centimeter of skin contains 1 yard of blood vessels, 700 sweat glands, 3000 sensory cells at the end of nerve fibers, 4 yards of nerves, 25 pressure apparatus for the perception of tactile stimuli, 200 nerve endings to record pain, 2 sensory apparatus for cold, 12 sensory apparatus for heat, 30 lakh cells, 10 hairs, and 15 sebaceous glands. Only in 1 cubic centimeter, you are having all these contents. So the skin is the largest organ of the body. The total area is about 15 to 20 square feet with thickness of 0.3 to 3 mm, which accounts for 7% of total body weight. It weighs twice as much as your brain. 1 centimeter square has 70 centimeters blood vessels, 55 centimeter nerves, 100 sweat glands, 15 oil glands, and 230 sensory receptors. So you can see the structure of the skin, microscopic structure of the skin. That you can see the layers of the skin like epidermis, dermis, hypodermis, hair roots, hair follicles, eccrine sweat glands, hair shafts, pore, dermal papillae, Meissner corpuscles, free nerve endings, reticular layer of the dermis, sebaceous glands, erector pili muscles, sensory nerve fibers, eccrine sweat glands, Pacinian corpuscles, some arteries, veins, adipose tissues, hair follicle receptors. It is the microsection of the skin. So first we will see about what are the functions of the skin. So first, very important function is protection. It may be mechanical, chemical, or bacterial protection. Then body temperature regulations. It prevents water loss. Some metabolic functions like synthesis of vitamin D. Cutaneous sensations. It is also a blood reservoir. Main function is excretions of the waste products. It prevents UV damage. So these are the functions of the skin. Then layers of the skins. So there are 3 layers of the skin: epidermis, dermis, and hypodermis. You can see in the image. Epidermis, dermis, and hypodermis. So first we'll see in detail about epidermis. The epidermis is a thin layer of skin made up of keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. What is epidermis? Epidermis is a thin layer of skin which is made up of keratinized stratified squamous epithelium. It is the most superficial layer of the skin. The layer you can see with your eyes when you look at the skin anywhere on your body. Its thickness varies from part to part. Like its thickness in few cells, like in eyelids, is very few. And to the dozens of cells which are thick, like in palms and soles of feet. Then there are some sublayers of epidermis. There are 5 sublayers of epidermis. First is stratum corneum. You can see the histological slide. Stratum corneum. Then stratum lucidum. Stratum granulosum. Stratum spinosum. And stratum basale. So we'll see one by one. First is stratum basale. The stratum basale is a single layer of cells primarily made up of basal cells. A basal cell is a cuboidal shaped stem cells that is the precursor of the keratinocytes of the epidermis. All of the keratinocytes are produced from the single layer of cells which are constantly going through the mitosis to produce new cells. Continuous new cells production चालू असतं. What is stratum basale? Is a single layer of cell primarily made up of basal cell. This basal cell is a cuboidal shaped stem cell that is a precursor of keratinocytes of epidermis. All of the keratinocytes are produced from this single layer of the cells, which are constantly going through mitosis to produce new cells. There are some other 2 types of cells are also present in stratum basale, like Merkel cell. This Merkel cell, which functions as a receptor and is responsible for stimulating sensory nerves that the brain perceives as a touch. So which cell is responsible for the touch? The Merkel cell. This Merkel cell functions as a receptor and it is responsible for stimulating sensory nerve that the brain receives as a touch. These cells are especially abundant on the surface of the hands and feet. The second important cell is melanocyte that produces pigment melanin, which is responsible for our skin color. So there are three cells in stratum basale. First is basal cell, second is Merkel cell, and third is melanocyte. You can again see the image. In that, at the base point, you can see the basal lamina, basal layer. In basal cells, there is a Merkel cell, which is responsible for touch, sensations. Then you can see the melanocytes, which produces melanin. This melanin is responsible for the color pigmentation or skin pigmentation. Then second layer, stratum spinosum. As the name suggests, it is a spiny in appearance due to protruding cell processes that joins the cells via a structure called desmosome. This desmosome interlock with each other and strengthen the bond between the cells. The stratum spinosum is composed of 8 to 10 layers of keratinocytes formed as a result of cell division in the stratum basal. We have seen the mitosis process occurs in the stratum basal, and that cell division mitosis process, the cell division which appears in stratum basale mitosis, and this stratum spinosum is composed of this 8 to 10 layers of keratinocytes formed as a result of cell division. It is interspersed among the keratinocytes of this layer and is a type of dendritic cell called as a Langerhans cells. You must have heard about Langerhans cells. These Langerhans cells, which functions as a macrophage by engulfing bacteria, foreign particles, and damaged cells that occur in this layer. You can see in the image this Langerhans cells in the layer of spinous layer. In spinous layer, there are also keratinocytes, and there are also present Langerhans cells. These Langerhans cells work as a macrophages, and these macrophages engulfs the bacteria, foreign particles, and damaged cells which occurs in these layers. The keratinocytes in the stratum spinosum begins the synthesis of keratin. Keratin is a protein and it releases a water-repelling glycolipid that helps to prevent water loss from the body, making the skin relatively waterproof. As new keratocytes are produced and pushed into the stratum granulosum. What these keratinocytes makes? These keratinocytes synthesize the keratin and it also releases water-repelling glycolipid that helps to prevent water loss from the body, which makes the skin relatively waterproof. Then third layer, stratum granulosum. It has a grainy appearance, so it is called as granulosum. Grainy appearance due to further changes to the keratinocytes. Here also keratinocytes are present, but these keratinocytes are in grainy appearance. These cells become flatter, cell membranes thick, and they generate large amounts of protein keratin, which is fibrous, and keratohyalin, which accumulates as a lamellar granules within the cells. The nuclei and other cell organelles disintegrate as a cells die, leaving behind keratin, keratohyalin, and cell membranes that will form the next layer, stratum lucidum, stratum corneum, and some accessory structures of hair and nails. This is the layer where part of keratin production occurs. The keratin production started in the first layer, stratum spinosum, with the help of keratinocytes. These keratinocytes change their appearance, like in grainy appearance in stratum granulosum. They become flat. The cell membranes of these keratinocytes becomes thick, and it generates large amount of protein keratin. And this keratin is a fibrous. Another protein is keratohyalin. This accumulates as a lamellar granules within these cells. The nuclei and other cell organelles disintegrate as the cell dies, which leaves behind the keratin, keratohyalin, and cell membranes that will form the next layers like stratum lucidum, stratum corneum, and some accessory structures of hair and nails. This is the layer where keratin production mainly occurs. The next layer is stratum lucidum. This layer is found only on the palms of hands, fingertips, and soles of the feet. Where it is found? This layer is found only on palms of hands, fingertips, and soles of feet. These are packed with eledin. Eledin is a clear protein which is rich in lipids derived from keratohyalin, which gives these cells their transparent appearance, and it makes as a waterproof. What is stratum lucidum? This stratum lucidum is the layer which is found only on the palms of the hands, fingertips, and soles of the feet. And these are packed with eledin. What is eledin? It is a clear protein which is rich in lipids derived from the keratohyalin, which gives these cells as a transparent appearance and make it waterproof. And last layer is stratum corneum. So this is the thickest layer. This is the thickest layer which is composed by elongated mature keratinocytes or dead skin cells that we shed into the environment. The entire epidermal layer is replaced every 4 weeks. In fact, it is estimated that an individual will shed about 1 pound of skin every year throughout. Stratum corneum. What is this? This is the thickest layer, thickest outermost layer. Thickest layer composed of elongated mature keratinocytes or dead skin cells that we shed into the environment, and the entire epidermal layer is replaced every 4 weeks. In fact, it is estimated that individual will shed about 1 pound of skin every year throughout. So what are the cells present in epidermis? There are 4 cells mainly. Keratinocytes, which makes keratin. Langerhans cells, which works as a macrophages. These are star-shaped dendritic phagocytic cells. It phagocytes bacteria or some dead materials. Then Merkel cells. Merkel cells are the cells which contains touch receptors. Then melanocytes, which makes brown pigment melanin. Then what are the epidermal disorders? We will see here shortly, like inflammation, infection, skin pigmentation, neoplasm, and there are some conditions that starts in epidermis layer of skin These conditions can be caused due to allergies, irritations, genetics, bacteria, or some autoimmune reactions. These are like seborrheic dermatitis, which we called it as a dandruff. Then atopic dermatitis, called as eczema, plaque psoriasis, skin fragility syndrome, boils, nevus. What is nevus? It is the birthmark, mole, or port wine stain. Then acne, melanoma, which is skin cancer, keratosis, some harmless skin growths, epidermoid cyst, and pressure ulcers like bed sores. So these are some common disorders related to the epidermis. What are those? Seborrheic dermatitis, atopic dermatitis, plaque psoriasis, skin fragility syndrome, boils, nevus, acne, melanoma, keratosis, epidermoid cyst, and pressure ulcers. The next layer is dermis. Underneath the epidermis lies the dermis. So it might be considered the core of the integumentary system. What is integumentary system? The system which contains blood, lymph vessels, nerves, mast cells, and some other structures like hair follicles and sweat glands. It is made up of 2 layers of connective tissue that compose an interconnected mesh of elastin and collagenous fibers produced by fibroblast. It is on average about 2 mm thick. So dermis lies underneath the epidermis and it considered as a core of this system. This system contains blood, lymph vessels, nerves, mast cells, and some other structures like hair follicles and sweat gland. It is made up of 2 layers of connective tissue that composes an interconnected mesh of elastin and collagenous fibers, which are produced by fibroblast. It is on an average about 2 mm thick. So you can again see the image. The second layer is dermis, which is highlighted as a green color. Dermis, which contains papillary dermis and reticular dermis. And it contains dermal papillae, subpapillary vascular plexus, sweat pores, some appendages of skin like eccrine sweat gland, arrector pili muscles, sebaceous glands, hair follicles, hair root, and some vascular plexus. Then layers of dermis. There are only 2 layers of dermis, papillary layer and reticular layer. Papillary layer, it is also known as upper dermis, which is made up of loose areolar connective tissue, which means the collagen and elastic fibers of this layer form a loose mesh. This layer of dermis projects into the stratum basale of the epidermis to form the finger-like dermal papillae. You can see in the image the finger-like dermal papillae. What is papillary layer? It is also known as upper dermis, which is made up of loose areolar connective tissue, which means the collagen and elastin fibers of this layer and forms a loose mesh. This layer of dermis projects into the stratum basale for the epidermis to form the finger-like dermal papillae. Then second layer is reticular layer. Underlying the papillary layer is a much thicker reticular layer, also known as lower dermis, and it is composed of dense, irregular connective tissues. This layer is well vascularized and has a rich sensory and sympathetic nerve supply. The reticular layer appears reticulated. What is meaning of reticulated? Like net-like. And it is due to a tight meshwork of fibers. In first layer, that is papillary layer, there is a loose meshwork. And this reticular layer, there is a tight meshwork. You can see in the image, the first part of dermis is papillary layer and it is very small. And the second part is reticular dermis. Then what are the blood vessels of dermis does? These blood vessels are responsible for thermoregulations of the body by constricting or dilating to conserve or release the heat. What this blood vessel does? It does thermoregulation of the body by constricting or dilating to conserve or release the heat. It also has the immune function. It provides the oxygen and nutrients to the lower layer of epidermis. These blood vessels do not extend into the epidermis. These are present only in dermis. And what are their function? Thermoregulation of body by constricting or dilating to conserve or release heat. Immune function, and it provides oxygen and nutrients to lower layers of epidermis. And these are only present in dermis. Then a number of components are common to both dermis and epidermis. These are pores, hair, sebaceous glands, and sweat glands. These pores are formed by folding in of the epidermis into the dermis. The skin cells that line the pore, that is keratinocytes, are continuously shed, just like the cells of epidermis at the top of the skin. The keratinocytes being shed from the lining of the pore can mix with the sebum and clog these pores. And this is the precursor of acne. How acne forms? The keratinocytes which are being shed from the lining of these pores, this can mix with the sebum and clog the pores. So it is called as the precursor of acne. Hair grows out of the pores and is composed of dead cells filled with keratin proteins. And at the base of each hair, there is a bulb-like follicle that divides to produce new cells. The follicle is nourished by tiny blood vessels and glands which are present in dermis layer. These hairs prevents heat loss and helps to protect epidermis from minor abrasions and exposure to sun's rays. Then glands. There are mainly 3 types of glands which exist within the skin. First one is sebaceous glands. You can see in the image sebaceous glands. Then sweat glands, which are of 2 types, eccrine sweat glands and apocrine sweat glands. And this ceruminous glands only presents in ear. So first we'll see about sebaceous gland. The sebaceous glands secrete an oily substance that protects the skin and prevents excess water loss. These sebaceous glands present in a whole body, and at different place it is named as a different. Like in eyelids, it is called as meibomian glands. In the lips, gums, inner cheeks, and genitals, it is called as Fordyce spots. In the nipple, it is called as areolar glands. Several related medical conditions which involve sebum, which includes acne, sebaceous cyst, hyperplasia, and sebaceous adenoma. So the sebaceous glands secretes an oily substance which is called as sebum, and this sebum protects the skin and prevents excess water loss. At different place, it is called as different, like meibomian glands in eyelids, Fordyce spots in lips, gums, inner cheeks, and at genitals, areolar glands in nipples, and several related conditions which involve sebum, which includes acne, sebaceous cyst, hyperplasia, and sebaceous adenoma. Then second glands are sweat glands. It is also called as sudoriferous glands. Sudoriferous glands or sweat glands secretes a dilute saline solution that assists in thermal regulation. When the solution evaporates on the skin surface, it cools the skin. Sweat glands, also called as sudoriferous glands, which secretes dilute saline solution which assists in thermal regulation. And when this solution evaporates on the skin surface, it cools the skin. There are two types of sweat glands, eccrine sweat glands and apocrine sweat glands. These eccrine glands occur under the most skin surfaces and secrete a watery solution through pores. Pores are opening at the skin surface, which serve to cool the skin as it evaporates. And these apocrine glands, which occur under the skin surfaces of armpits and pubic regions. And beginning with puberty, it secretes a solution in response to stress or sexual excitement. The solution more viscous than that of secreted by eccrine glands and is secreted into hair follicles. You can join meeting again for the 20 minutes.
Hello.
So what we have seen, there are two types of sweat glands. First one is eccrine glands and apocrine glands. These eccrine glands occur under the most skin surfaces and secretes watery solution through pores, which serves to cool the skin as it evaporates. Then apocrine glands, which occur under the skin surfaces of armpits and pubic regions. And beginning with puberty, it secretes a solution in response to stress or sexual excitement. This solution is more viscous than that secreted by the eccrine glands. Next is ceruminous glands. These ceruminous glands secrete the wax from the inner ear. This wax creates a sticky barrier to invading organisms. What are these ceruminous glands? These ceruminous glands secrete the wax from the inner ear, and this wax creates a sticky barrier to invade organisms. You can see in the image, the inner ear secretes the wax. The next and last layer of skin is hypodermis. This is the innermost layer. It is the deepest layer of the skin, composed by well vascularized, loose, areolar connective tissues and adipose tissue that functions as a mode of fat storage and provides insulation and cushion against the physical trauma to internal organs, muscles, and bones. And it is also called as subcutaneous layer. It contains blood vessels, macrophages, fibroblasts, and nerves. Additionally, the body will turn to this fat in times of starvation to provide power to its various processes, especially for brain function. So what is hypodermis? This is the deepest layer of skin composed by well vascularized, loose areolar connective tissue and adipose tissues, which functions as a mode of fat storage, and it also provides insulation and cushion against physical trauma to the internal organs, muscles, and bones. It is also called as subcutaneous layer of the skin. It contains blood vessels, macrophages, fibroblasts, and nerves. Additionally, the body will turn to this fat in times of starvation to provide power to its various processes, especially for brain function. The fat tissue below the dermis that insulates the body from cold temperature and provides shock absorption. It also stores nutrients and energy. It is thickest in buttocks, palms of hands, and soles of feet. As we age, this hypodermis begins to atrophy, and which contributes to the thinning of aging skin. Then skin color. There are main 3 skin pigments in our skin. First one is melanin. Second one is carotene. Carotene, mainly we get it from carrots and yellow veggies. And third pigment is hemoglobin, the pink or light skin. So what factors decides our color? The color of person's skin is due to manufacture and deposition of pigment called melanin, which is produced in 2 forms. First is pheomelanin, a yellowish pigment, and second one is eumelanin, a dark brown or black pigment. Both of these types of melanin are manufactured by melanocytes, which are cells in the skin located in the many layers below the surface at the bottom part of epidermis. What are melanocytes? We have seen it is the cells present in the epidermis. These melanocytes expresses a unique enzyme called as a tyrosinase. This tyrosinase functions to convert the simple amino acid tyrosine into melanin. To make and disperse this pigment throughout the skin, melanocytes use a 3 steps manufacturing process. What are these steps? First step is activation. The chemical signals coming from other cells in the skin causes melanocytes to activate tyrosinase. And this tyrosinase converts tyrosine into melanin. And here begins the melanin synthesis. Second step is synthesis. Melanin is manufactured, packaged into the elliptically shaped containers called as melanosomes and relocated to the outer regions of tentacle-like projections of melanocytes called dendrites. Then step 3, expression. Melanin-filled melanosomes are transferred from the ends of dendrites to keratinocytes for the shipment to the surface of the skin. So there are 3 steps: activation, synthesis, and expression of melanin. So every day keratinocytes move from the bottom region of the epidermis to the surface of the skin. If they have picked up melanosomes, keratinocytes carry them to the skin surface, where the melanin in the melanosomes gives the skin a pigmented appearance. So in spite of large variations in skin color that exist among the people from different parts of the world, everyone has exactly same number of melanocytes in their skin. So we all have same number of melanocytes, but what differs? The synthesis of melanin is different. So this difference is in amount of melanin in person's skin is due to primarily how active the melanocytes are, how much melanin they make, and how efficiently they transport melanin-filled melanosomes to the keratinocytes throughout the skin. So these are the factors which are responsible for melanin increase or decrease content. So there are many factors, environmental and other factors, that determine the activation state of melanocytes in the skin, and therefore how much melanin will be made. And of course, one of the most well-known factor that activate melanocytes is UV radiation from the sun, or also called as tanning beds. Exposure to UV lights leads to the production of large number of inflammatory mediators and hormones in the skin, which then activate melanocytes by binding to specific receptors on these cells. And the end result of this activation is what we called it as a tannin, increased production of melanin. Some other environmental stressors that causes skin to produce inflammatory mediators and can lead to the increased skin pigmentation like age, pregnancy, and birth control pills, which can also cause increased melanin production. So all the basics are cleared.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I will share the PPT with you, and also you can see the video lecture on YouTube. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, attendance.
Thank you,
I
ma'am.
have taken screenshots.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You can leave the meeting.